Hello everyone and welcome back to the Hexagon Challenge here on Shaun Does FM. I hope you are doing well and looking forward to this transfer special before the new season here at Monterrey, the 2033-34 season. So if you're looking forward to it, remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you want to keep up to date with things when we do kick off in game with some actual games, then remember to also hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well, and it is greatly appreciated. On my end, as I said, no gameplay today. We'll just run through transfers so it doesn't drag out into a big start of the season episode like it has in the past. And as you join me on the 6th of July 2033, we have literally just finished the transfer window. It has hit midnight on the dot and the transfer window has closed, so we can run you guys through each transfer that we have done, exactly why we have done it, and show you guys the new boys that will be coming into the squad here at Monterrey. Of course, a team that were able to pick up the double once we joined them last season. If you missed yesterday's episode where we did play the Liga MX Torneo Clausura final against Dorados, I will leave a link to it in the top right corner for you, but of course I have now spoiled it. We did win that final 8-4 on aggregate and completed the double along with Copa MX, and that does mean by being in that final yesterday that we do have CONCACAF Champions League football this coming season. So hopefully we can wrap up this Hexagon Challenge as well, which would be very nice to do. But we'll get into the transfers and we'll run you guys through each of them as best as we can. I suppose that's the main thing to do. So I think we're going to start off with the outs, because a lot of these players who we have let go to date, just to be honest, just weren't good enough to be in the team. That's about the only reason that these guys were let go, the players who have left the club for now. There is one in the works that might still leave us who could have been able to stay at the club, but the money that came in for him was just too good, and we did sign a replacement for him because of the fact that he might be leaving. So these are the ones that have gone out so far, or because they're pretty much just not good enough potential-wise. If you've seen my series up to date, you will know I like to have players who at least have 3-star potential, and most of these guys were only very much on the verge of that or under it, so that's why they got sold. And in some cases, they also took up a non-Mexican born slot, so that was the other reason. Free up a few of those just in case we did need to use them and bring in a few more local players. So we started off in mid-June. We let go of Fernando Rivera. As you can see, a goalkeeper, 20 years old, but you look at the scout summary, only that 2.5-star potential at the most, so we thought it was a good idea to let him go. Valued at 3.8k, is a good aerial reach goalkeeper, but apart from that, okay stats, wasn't going to grow a great deal, and for $1,000, it didn't seem that bad. Obviously, we didn't realise he was worth as much as he's listed for now, but hey, it happens. Not a huge loss on him that way, but $1,000 for a player who did come through our youth system isn't terrible, and of course it is Euros, which is probably not too bad here in Mexico either. Off the back of that, at the end of June, we let go of Eduardo Garcia. As I said, similar circumstances, 30-year-old backup goalkeeper. This guy, 2.5-star, both current and potential, wasn't really getting a lot of game time for us, and as I said, I just felt like we could bring in some younger goalkeepers, and that's something that we did do in the transfer window. Valued at 235k, was only ever really a backup behind Schneller for us. 195k, so potentially undersold him, but considering his age, felt like a good transfer to get him off the books while we could for a little bit of money. Then shortly off the back of that, Pedro Cancelo. This guy was a left back who was unregistered when at the club last season because, of course, he is Portuguese, so a guy who we thought we would let go of. He's only an average player, as you can see. 2.5-star current ability, just about could sneak up to 3, but we knew he was 2.5-star when he was at the club, and also 2.5-star potential, so we knew he wasn't quite at that level that we needed for especially a foreign player. If we're going to have foreign players here at the club, they need to be good because we only allowed 12 of them, so we need to make the most of those slots. 31 years old, so getting on in age as well. Valued at 475k, sold him for only 84, so we did take a really heavy loss there, so not the best transfer business, but he was valued at less than that when he was at the club, so we're going to have to grin and bear that one. A really poor transfer from our previous managers here at the club, it has to be said, because only played 19 games, and as I said, when you're going to bring foreigners into the Mexican league, they need to be pretty good players, otherwise you're kind of wasting those slots. So honestly, not a great transfer there, but as I said, he wasn't going to get in the squad and he's 31 years old. We thought we'd let him go for some money while we still could. Big loss, but not really our problem because we didn't sign the guy. So yeah, I'll try and justify that one that way. A few days later, Joaquin Perez, we let go for €25. This was a guy who only had about half a year left on his contract, so to get any money for him at all actually wasn't that bad a deal for the 20-year-old Mexican. You can see didn't have a lot of current ability, not much potential, so we were going to let him go anyway. To get a bit of money for him was actually a decent deal. I think we've got a bit of a sell-on fee percentage there as well from memory. Can't see it there, but I'm pretty sure we do. Don't hold me to that, but the €25 that we did get for him, look, it's better than nothing. And as I said, another player who didn't really have the potential to be doing anything at the club. And then 3 transfers going out on deadline day. First off, we had Oceania, a Brazilian 23-year-old, a player who wouldn't quite have made it into the rotation with the foreign rules. You can see he's an okay player, had the potential, but his current ability isn't really there, so thought we'd let him go. He'd only ever really be a fringe player, and with him being a foreigner, just felt like it was a good time to let him go despite being quite young. We could have loaned him out, but we've got a lot of right wingers at the club, and that's where he would have fit in. So felt like a good decision to let him go. He was signed for 1.6 million by the previous manager last season. So again, not great from him. Has to be said, 6.8 rating in his only game he played. And then he was unregistered for the most part anyway, I think, from memory. So yeah, not a great transfer from the previous manager. We lose $1 million on that transfer, more 900k. But again, getting rid of a player who doesn't have a lot of potential while we could before his price dropped too much more. Arturo Delgado was another backup goalkeeper that we had that we thought would let go, bring in a bit more youth that we have done in this transfer window. You can see 2-star current ability, 2-star potential. It was actually less than that when he was at the club, and we sold him for 15k after signing him on a free. So after a few transfers where we did take a heavy hit, this time we have actually made a little bit of money, so that was nice. Valued at 15.25k, that's what we sold him to, and he's joined the Atletico San Luis B team. Something I actually haven't mentioned yet is we now have a B team ourselves that got added right at the start of the transfer window, so we're going to be throwing a few more players into that team from our first choice, sort of the scrags that we don't use too much, and they'll get some game time in the reserve competition. So hopefully that goes well. Interesting that they didn't already have a B team here at Monterrey, but still employing staff for that team, but not too sure exactly how it's going to work. Hopefully, as I said, we can win the Champions League here next season, and the next manager can sort out the integration of that a bit more than we have. But at the very least, it's going to allow us a bit more chance to give our rotation players a bit of game time, and also get more of the under 20 players who are actually under 20 some game time in that team as well. So that's a bit of a side note that I thought we'd better add in there. And our last transfer on the outs at the moment was a Nilson, a 31-year-old Brazilian who was out on loan last season. He has joined Club Necaxa, so a Champions League rival this season for us. Valued at 1.6 million, but again, 2-star current ability, and he could have got up to 2.5, but it was very unlikely, especially at that age of 31. We bought him for 6.5 million a couple of years ago, as again when we weren't at the club. So transfer, especially when you're going to loan him out to a rival. And again, that's a pretty bad loss for us, it has to be said, but he was getting on an age and it felt like we might as well cash in on him while we could. So fair to say, we've taken a bit of a hit on the outs in terms of what our previous managers here at Monterrey have spent on these guys, but they were all players who, to be blunt, just weren't the quality that we were looking for. We will go back to the transfer centre because there is one more transfer that could happen. We're prepared for it to go through, and that is Hugo Gerardo. This was one of our backup box-to-box midfielders from last season. He is valued at 250,000 euros. He's had a few bids for him, could get up to 3.5-star potential. We know he's a decent backup option for us, but we've had a few bids for him in this window. Quite average bids, sort of under the $1 million mark, and then the sassy boys from Italy came in and decided, how about 2.5 million euros, rising to 3 million with a sell-on clause. So when that happened, it was a bit too good to turn down. So Hugo Gerardo is likely going to be leaving us for 2.5 million. But that bid did get put in a wee while ago, so we have had time to sort out a replacement, and he has already joined the club. So should Hugo accept the contract from Sassuolo, then he will be leaving the club because we have already bought in a replacement for him. If he doesn't, not too worried about it, to be honest, because we've also got 10 million euro in the transfer budget. We don't really need the money. And if he goes, then we've got a little bit extra to spend in the mid-season transfer window, should we need to. So that's the only transfer that we have that hasn't been tidied up yet. One of the few players who got a bit of game time here last season as well, and Hugo Gerardo, the only real name that you'll probably recognise who is leaving the club. So now we get to the fun stuff and the players who have joined us. So first off, we had 2 players joining us from China, which the previous manager had signed in the past transfer window. 13 million and 12.75 million euros respectively, and that was Juan Carlos Cabajal from Henan Jianye and Esteban Ocampo from Shanghai Shenhua, both similar price players from the same country, and luckily for us, they are both Mexican national-born players, so that helps us out registration-wise. So first off, Juan Carlos Cabajal, 4-star rated attacking left winger, and that was an area that we were pretty short on behind Wallison and Garcia. We didn't have a lot of depth in that area, so that was actually a really good transfer from the previous manager. Valued at 9 million, so probably slightly overpaid for him, but considering the quality that he brings, he's a national-born player, which is a really useful thing to have. I really like that transfer from him, so quite happy with our previous manager there, bringing this guy, and you can see his physical. He's got pace and agility for days, so really looking forward to him getting a crack in the first team. Not sure if he's going to replace Wellison despite that higher star rating now, but we'll see when we start the season, see who performs better and make a decision then. But he's certainly a very good backup at the very least for us behind the Brazilian. At the very least, he's going to be a good option when we do need to use national-born players should we have too many foreigners in the lineup. And then Ocampo came in on the same date, a 3-star centre-back. You can see he's right up my alley. He looks a pretty decent ball-playing defender type of guy. Valued at 8.5 million, so much like the previous transfer. As I said, they were very similar transfers. This guy won't be a first-team player, I don't think, but he really is pushing someone like Montoya for that role. And again, a very good backup for us, so that provides a great bit of squad depth. 2 very good transfers from the previous manager coming into the club, both Mexican national-born players, and this guy can also go to right back and left back, so really happy with those. So those transfers we didn't have anything to do with, but I was very happy when those players did join the club to see just how good they were. So big thumbs up in respect to the previous manager for those. Then we did some of our own business right off the back of that. Now, first up, you would have noticed last season a few times I said that I did rely a bit on Puente up front, both because he is a damn good striker and also because he's quite tall, very good at heading, and that helped us out set piece wise. What I felt is that we didn't quite have that same sort of player in the reserves, and that was just a bit of nuisance value, for lack of a better term for me, because I had to change set pieces quite a bit because of that. So what we did is we signed a similar backup, and the player that we got was Juan Pablo Solis, a 3-star with 3.5-star potential rated striker. If you look at his stats, he's got very good finishing, good anticipation. Some of the other areas are lacking, but the one that we are also focusing on, apart from the finishing, 14 heading, 16 jumping reach, and 1.88 meters. So he looks a very good backup to Puente, should be able to fill the exact same role that he does, and it saves me having to change set piece defensively and attack. So quite happy with that transfer. Valued at 2.7 million. We bought him in for 2.6. So pretty happy with that transfer. Gone slightly undervalued, and he's going to really suit the system should he perform anywhere near the level that Puente does. And he could also prove quite useful defensive-wise as well. So quite happy with that signing to fill this like-for-like striker backup issue that I felt we sometimes had here last season. Then off the back of that, a backup left back. I felt like we needed a backup left back and right back. I was looking at letting go of Antonio Ortiz, a player who was our backup left back last season, only had 2.5-star potential. We did have a deal for him from an MLS team sorted out, but by the time that it was about to go through, they realized they already had too many international players. So that was interesting, and the deal fell through. So Antonio Ortiz is going to stick with us for now, but not really going to feature in the first team this season. This guy will instead, and you can see a very good left back who is on a squad player contract, is actually higher rated than Ayala, but just isn't quite there stat-wise compared to him. So this guy's going to be pushing him quite hard in the backup role. We'll switch him to wing-back support so you can see what he's about. Good physical stats for the most part. Decent technically and mentally. Valued at 2.4. We did spend 1.7 million on him from Atlas Guadalajara. Had a decent season for them last year. And another player that we got a little bit below value to provide some squad cover for us. So really happy with that transfer as well. You can see he actually played for Bournemouth a while ago and also Puma. So he's a fair bit of experience, this guy. Quite happy with that transfer. Looks a very good backup option for us. Mexican born, of course, just like Soli and our previous transfers were. So definitely focusing on the local players so that we had enough room to bring in a good foreigner when we needed to. The next transfer that we made was Fernando Garcia. Now this is our defensive midfielder who I was looking to potentially replace Barco, who is actually now Mexican but not nation born. That actually stuffed me up when I was trying to do squad registration before. Of course, when we came to the club last year, Barco had a different nationality. Now he's Mexican but still doesn't qualify as being trained in the nation, which I did forget about registration wise. Luckily, had a bit of a fix for that. We brought in a few extra goalkeepers from the reserve team and got rid of one of our Brazilian backups who wasn't very good. So nearly stuffed that up, but luckily it came through okay registration-wise. Barco changing his nationality on us. But this guy is going to be his backup. Another deal where we bought someone in, thought he might be a bit better. Turned out just not quite as good as Barco. He's actually a better tackler and marker, but it's just some of these other stats where Barco has him. But he's going to be a very solid backup for us. A bit of a step up from what we had last year in De Luna, so that's good. Valued at 3.8 million. We spent 4 million on him. He's had a good spell at Club Leon after leaving the club early on when we got him for 400,000 back really early on in the save, actually, 2023. So a transfer where I suppose we made a loss because we sold him for 2.6 and bought him back for 4, but he did look a really good backup option for Barco and the best that we could find who wanted to come to the club on a reasonable contract. You can see regular starter, so he may have somewhat overpromised there, but he will get a fair bit of game time, so we should be able to live up to that. And he looks a solid backup option, can also go forward a little bit. A good backup midfielder for us there will be the starting defensive midfielder in the rotation. Then we brought in our one foreigner of the window. This was from the MLS. He is Dutch and his name is Milian Jimenez, a 30-year-old, so he's just under the age that we could sneak players in to match the club vision. And he is our big signing of the window in terms of first team, because he is going to replace Diego Hernandez because he looks a lot more well-rounded for that box-to-box midfielder role. You look at his stats. You remember with Hernandez, he had a few gaps in his game, was very good at a few things, but a couple just weren't quite there. This guy is pretty solid across the board, should be very good in the box-to-box midfield role. It might take him a little while to get up to tactical familiarity with it, but he looks a very good option. You can see very well-rounded. Valued at 3.3 million. We bought him for a bit more than that, 5 million, but I still feel like that's a decent deal for a guy who is going to be a first choice player for us. Quite experienced, should be quite good in that box-to-box role. Very good first touch. As I said, he's solid everywhere. Should be very good in that role. Our only player for now who's coming into the team and fitting straight into that first 11, replacing Hernandez from last season. So that's the big transfer, I suppose, but we did spend big on the next one. This is probably the transfer I'm most excited about. Ivo Almaraz. Now, this is a guy who sort of came up in the scouting center when we were doing scouting. He's a young Mexican defender, and we still needed a right back. I tried to sign a good right back from a foreign club, but unfortunately, he wanted a ridiculous amount of money and a ridiculous contract when he would have only been a backup. So I had to go snooping a little bit for young, promising players. And I found this guy. I think this guy looks like one of the most exciting players I've signed in Football Manager, period. He's listed as a centre-back and right-back, but you look at his height, you look at his heading, his jumping reach. There's no way that he's a centre-back. You put him on wing-back support, and boy, this guy could become good. 18 years old. We signed him for 7 million. He's valued at 5.25, which is great because when we signed him at the previous club, he was valued at something like 40,000 euros. So quite happy that gamble paid off. He has got some spectacular stats for an 18-year-old. 18 tackling, 16 positioning, 19 teamwork, and his physicals as well. He is quick, he is balanced, great teamwork. I am looking forward to this guy so much. He's already 3-star. I thought he was going to be 2.5. He's a guy who is currently going to be the backup to Clayton, but there is a chance that this guy could overtake him throughout the season. I am so excited to get this guy in my backup team. I think this is one of my better transfers I've had in the game. Media description centre back, but no doubt about it, this guy is a right back. He just looks way too good in that role. Hopefully he can improve his crossing and dribbling, but at 18 years old, he's got a lot of potential. 4.5-star. Really excited about him. Pinched him off Puebla. And yeah, I think he could be an absolute star of the future. I'm quite tempted once we finish our time here at Monterrey, should we of course wrap up the Hexagon Challenge here, to sim in the future and see just how good this guy becomes, because he looks very promising. I'm, as I said, so excited to get this guy in the team and see what he does. If Clayton gets injured or this guy improves, he might be stepping into the first team a bit sooner than I thought when I made the transfer. But big outlay considering that he's only going to be a backup player for now, but he certainly is going to become a first team player in the future, even if it might be after we leave the club. But probably a transfer, as you probably can tell, I'm the most excited about. Really happy with that one. Very promising right back from Puebla, Ivo Almaraz. Remember the name. Then off the back of that, we made a few more transfers just to tidy things up, with 3 on deadline day to match the 3 that went out, as well as the one with Gerardo, who could still go to the Sassy Boys in Italy. Luis Rodriguez was the first from Club Leon, a backup goalkeeper, 2-star currently rated with 4-star potential. He's only going to be a backup for us, but at 19 years old, he has good potential. Valued at 475k, we spent 750k for him, so slightly overpaid, but for a young Mexican goalkeeper who's got that much potential, I think that's a decent transfer. You probably won't see too much of this guy in the first team, but one for the future. And I felt like having a local backup goalkeeper was a better option than a couple of either old local backups or foreign backups. So that was the reasoning that we spent a little bit on this guy. On the whole, it's only 700k, so it's not like it's huge money for us, but still felt like it was a decent transfer to make with the registration rules being considered. Then our next transfer on deadline day was Jose Guadalupe Avila from Fulham, our biggest transfer of the window. 7.5 million, could rise to 9 million. This is the guy we bought in to replace Gerardo, so if you consider that, we're going to get about 2.5 million for him. Hopefully that kind of takes this deal down to 5 million. He was transfer listed by Fulham, valued a little bit less than what we paid for him, but still has 4-star potential at 23 years old, has 1 Mexican cap. He's probably going to be the backup box-to-box again, but he can cover a lot of roles. Another very well-rounded midfielder. And you can see, got him from Fulham, where he had 1 season, didn't do much, and we sold him there for 4.4 million the season before. So he hasn't spent long at Fulham. Another deal where I suppose we made a loss, but with him being transfer listed, I thought it was a good opportunity to bring him back to the club, and he was quite happy to come back and be a fringe player. It's a decent outlay for a fringe player, but with that potential, he still could get in the first team should he improve. So interesting transfer. We've brought a few players back to the club who previously left, but they all look good players. Good decision making. You can see he's got a few good green stats and another very good backup option in the midfield for us. And to round off the transfer window, our under-20 manager made a signing of a Brazilian winger called Amaral. 7.5 thousand, valued at 9.5. Bit of potential. Why not? I mean, it was an under-20 manager signing, and he looked like he had a bit of potential, so we decided to let that one slide. Current ability, not quite there, but hopefully he can improve. So those are our transfers, and that is how our squad is going to look for this season. We'll go to the main screen, and you can see the only change that we've made for the starting 11 is that Jimenez comes in for Hernandez, but we'll jump that across, and you can see our bench looks very strong. 3 stars at least. Got the likes of Ocampo there currently. I am going to change that to our young guy, Almaraz, once he recovers from a little bit of an injury he's got at the moment, because he can also cover centre-back and right-back and is a bit more natural there. I want to give him a bit of game time because, as I said, so excited about that transfer. But you look through, we've got Garcia who can cover left-back, defensive midfield, and the midfield. Hernandez onto the bench. That's really good for him. He can be a box-to-box backup for us. You got Solly, who is striker and can play right wing, so that's a good pickup for us. Obviously, we're going to try and use him at striker more because of that height. Carvajal, exceptional backup winger. Still not sure if we're going to play him or Wallace on. We'll see who performs best throughout the early stages of the season. And Nunez is there as kind of a striking slash advanced playmaker backup who can also go onto the wing as well. He's such a good backup. Is Lucas Nunez, our fans player of the season from last year. So that bench is very good. And if we go to the rotation team that we've currently got out here, you can see for the most part it is a very good team. We'll run you guys through a few of these players currently in this team as well, because some of them have joined from the under 20, so you wouldn't have seen too much of them last season. And we've also got a few players who are going to be joining us who were out on loan last season as well. So I'll probably introduce you guys to those players throughout the season as we use them. But players who are going to be in the starting 11 for our backup. We've got a goalkeeper called Sergio. Now, he might actually get replaced by the guy that we brought in on deadline day. That's something I haven't done yet, but he was in our under 20s. You can see another young goalkeeper with good potential, and that allowed us to get rid of another backup foreign goalkeeper and those older goalkeepers that we had. So he's going to be in and around the first team. Good potential goalkeeper for us, one for the future. So we've got a couple of young Mexicans who can learn from Lucas Schneller, which I think is a good thing to have. And we've got a very promising centre-back who's probably going to drop to the bench in this team once Almaraz gets fit and healthy, because we can slot Ocampo back in there. And that is Gilberto Elic Abundas. This is a guy who went to the Under-20 World Cup with Mexico. That's how he came on my radar. Despite being at the club, you can see he's improving greatly. The 18-year-old got a lot of potential, so we're going to give him some game time when we can, because this is a guy I feel can definitely improve at the club and become a real star, much like Almaraz. So we could have some quite promising players who start to put some pressure on the first team guys should they improve in the second rotation when we can give this guy game time, because we are quite stacked now for backup centre backs. But those are the two of the younger guys coming through the club who have now joined into this sort of second rotation that we've got. Hopefully they can improve a little bit once they get in there and stake their claim for some first team football. But on the whole, really happy with the team that we've built here now. You see the squad depth we've got and just the backup team. Once we get some players here outside the goalkeeper, we should have a situation for this rotation where all these players, as I said, outside the goalkeeper are at least 3-star rated. So that's a great situation for a backup team, and will put us in a great place to be able to use this rotation during the Champions League later this season. We'll give you guys a quick rundown of the competitions before we wrap up today's video. As well, we've got the Mexican Champions Trophy, which will kick off in tomorrow's episode, a chance for us to win an early trophy once again against Pumas. We like being Pumas here at Monterrey since we've joined the club, so hopefully we can do that again. Off the back of that, we have the Leagues Cup. So this is like a little inter-cup competition between the North American teams, kind of an FA Cup between them. So it's a little bit of an early taste as to how strong the American teams will be in the Champions League for us. And you can see that we have LAFC nice and early. That could be an interesting game to bring you guys perhaps in a couple of episodes' time. So those are the two competitions alongside Liga MX Torneo that will kick off the season. And then the CONCACAF Champions League, the big one, doesn't actually kick off until after the next transfer window, the 14th of February. So we've got a fair while to wait until that one. But we do get a taste of the American and to a lesser extent Canadian teams before then, which will be very interesting. It's not a competition that the board are focused on at all, but it will at the very least provide something different from Liga MX, where really you only need to finish in the top 12, and that's not much of an accomplishment to make it into the final. So the league stage of Liga MX, I'm probably not going to focus on too much this season, because we've got a lot of other stuff happening, like the Leagues Cup and then the Champions League. We'll obviously bring you guys the odd game against the big teams like Club America, but apart from that, I think we'll try and focus on Leagues Cup and the CONCACAF Champions League, and otherwise the derby against Tigres, I suppose. That's probably what we'll focus on, because we did bring you guys a lot of local action once we joined the club last season. But I think that covers off everything in this transfer special and season preview. In fact, we will look at the season preview. You can see we are second favourite, pretty similar odds to last season, but you see the teams with those CCL next to them, and we are easily the best placed of those teams here in Mexico. Dorados all the way down in 19th, and Cancun, who have been promoted, all the way down in 20th, a new team to keep an eye on. But Club America will be our big rival domestically this season. They should be. A new manager who they've got from Querétaro, Hector Alvarez, and of course Querétaro did finish third in the second phase last season, so that's probably a decent appointment for them. Good manager, he looks like. Hopefully, though, we can keep having the wood over him after knocking him out in the quarterfinals last season, and they just have the advantage over us. But in the Champions League, it feels like this is the season that we really need to be winning it, because Club America, if we don't win it this season, could get in there next season, and that would probably make things even tougher, despite the fact we will have had another few transfer windows under our belt by then. But I think that wraps up everything for today. We'll come back tomorrow for that Champions Trophy game of Mexico against Pumas, and from there we'll see how we do in the Leagues Cup against teams from overseas. But if you did enjoy that transfer special, quite wordy, but we'll get into gameplay tomorrow, remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you want to keep up to date with how we do in this Hexagon Challenge at Monterrey this season, also remember to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. It is greatly appreciated. And until the next time I see you, when we will be kicking into that Mexican Champions Trophy against Pumas, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.